Welcome into our post-game coverage of the South Carolina win over Coastal Carolina tonight here at Williams-Brice Stadium in Columbia. Our report is brought to you by the South Carolina Beef Council. South Carolina rolls all over Coastal Carolina 51-7. The Gamecocks scored on the very first play of the game. They never looked back. This was never a contest. It was just the kind of game South Carolina needed coming off that heartbreaking loss at Texas A&M last weekend. You can call it the get-right game for the Gamecocks, get your confidence back game for the Gamecocks, get yourself ready for Clemson game for the Gamecocks. All that coming into play here today at Williams-Brice Stadium when the crowd was really, really good on a day when you might have thought, students aren't going to show up, fans in general aren't going to show up coming off the game last week. They turned out and they nearly filled up Williams-Brice Stadium. So kudos to everybody in the stands today supporting South Carolina on what was Senior Day and Military Appreciation Day. So the Gamecocks owned this thing from the very first snap. Sellers to Sellers. Lenoris to his younger brother, Jaden. And Jaden showing his skills, going 75 yards for a touchdown. And the route was on from there. The Gamecocks finished with 579 total yards. They had 24 first downs. Lenoris Sellers was the Superman guy again. I mean, he had his best game of the season statistically, 16 of 20, 274 yards and 2 touchdowns passing, 8 rushes for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that total production, both in terms of yardage and touchdowns, both high marks for him this season. The younger Sellers really emerging as maybe the go-to receiver for the Gamecocks. 4 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown, had that 75-yarder to start the game. Talking with the Sellers after the game in the press conference, and of course the question came up to Lenoris about his future plans, and he just said he's focused on Clemson right now. He'll deal with the future in the future. But Jaden was asked what he would advise his brother, and he dodged that question, but he was asked what he would prefer, and he said he would prefer to continue playing with his brother. So if things do turn out where Lenoris Sellers decides to come back to college, then maybe that's a good sign that he returns to South Carolina to play with his brother. But that story is still to be written. Another young receiver who stood out today, Donovan Murph. He had 4 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown, including a 38-yard catch. The Gamecocks averaged 8.4 yards per play, 13.7 yards per completion. They had 16 explosives, including 10 rushing, and they only allowed 4 explosive plays. Coastal Carolina could only manage 220 yards on the day. So not a good day for Coastal Carolina offensively, and only 46 yards on the ground. Sean Murphy stood out defensively for the Gamecocks. He had 12 tackles and 2.5 tackles for loss. I really thought this was going to be a more competitive game on Sports Talk. I took Coastal into 24.5 points. I mean, I thought South Carolina would win, but I thought Coastal would be very competitive. Chanticleers came in here. They had lost a very tough game at Georgia Southern last week, but they had scored 40 or more points in 4 consecutive games. So I thought their offense might do something against South Carolina. And who knew what kind of mindset South Carolina would have today after what happened last week. But the Gamecocks proved me wrong and maybe some others wrong as well. They came out focused and ready to play. But, I mean, execution was the thing in this game. I mean, there's so much talent, so much more talented than Coastal Carolina. They have the edge in practically every category, but how are they going to execute? And apparently in the minds of Shane Beamer, they executed extremely well, starting with their quarterback. And the receivers caught most everything. Offensive line did a nice job. Running backs ran hard. And the defense, of course, was dominant on its side. So just a tremendous all-around victory. The only fly in the ointment for the Gamecocks was that they gave up a block punt late that was recovered and returned 17 yards for a touchdown. Otherwise, it was a clean performance for the Gamecocks. So The preliminary now is out of the way, and the focus turns to Clemson here at Williams-Brice Stadium next Saturday afternoon. On paper, it looks like it's going to be a heck of a matchup. I mean, both teams are not having the kind of seasons that they wanted. Clemson did become bowl eligible today. South Carolina, this is their bowl game. The Palmetto Bowl is their bowl game for this year. So you know that both teams are going to give it everything they've got. And there's some things here to think about if you're into reading the tea leaves and looking at streaks and other indicators. I mean, the home team hasn't won in this series since 2018. So is it time? Then again, it's a 12 o'clock kick, and you see oftentimes that home team just doesn't answer the bell for those early kicks, advantage to the visitors. So we'll see how South Carolina handles that, and we'll see if they're able to protect the home turf this time around. I would think that Clemson is going to be about a 3 to 5 point favorite going into it next week. Should be a great Palmetto Bowl. I got a feeling the fans will be into it regardless of the fact that neither team is going on to do great things in the postseason. But I do think the fans will be typical South Carolina and Clemson fans, hard on one another and rooting hard for their team. And, you know, based on most recent history, I think we can expect a down-to-the-wire fourth quarter kind of game between these two teams next week. Can't wait for it. Looking forward to it. And it is the big sports event in South Carolina every year. And despite everything we're doing to try to screw up college football, so far we've not been able to impact that in a negative way. Let's hope that remains the case. We've got complete coverage of this game on our website, sportstalksc.com. And, of course, tomorrow night we'll have the Shane Beamer conference call for you. That will be a little bit after 5 o'clock. It will start at 5 o'clock. We'll have it up online for you a little bit after 5 o'clock. And, of course, same coverage of Clemson as well. Looking forward to taking your predictions and getting your thoughts on the Palmetto Bowl starting on Sports Talk on Monday night. For now, South Carolina wins it in a breeze over Coastal Carolina, 51-7 here at Williams-Brice Stadium. That'll do it for our report. Sports Talk at the stadium here at Williams-Brice, brought to you by the South Carolina Beef Council.